Book Revolution now. Today I want to address a controversy surrounding some stuff that the CEO of Spotify recently said. Okay, lots of people are really pissed off about this. He's like basically the most hated man in indie music right now. And I kind of understand why. What he says just sounds really kind of cruel and stupid. But so basically, Spotify has been under criticism for a long time now for not paying their artists enough. Okay, artists get like a fraction of a penny per stream. Spotify gets a lot of criticism for this, for not paying their artists enough. And the CEO of Spotify wanted to address this criticism, and he does that by saying, if you are an artist, a working musician, if you're a musician who wants to live off your music for money, you cannot expect to release an album every 3 or 4 years and to be able to live off that. You need to do more than that, okay? He's basically saying, if you want to live off your Spotify royalties, you gotta release more music, you gotta work harder, okay? Don't get mad at us, okay? It just sounds so cruel and harsh, just blaming the artists for not making enough money. Don't, not blaming us for not paying you shit. We're gonna blame the artists, It sounds like the classic case of the exploitative capitalist demanding the workers work harder so the capitalists can continue to profit off that labor and continue paying pennies, okay? So it sounds evil, yeah, and of course, you take what he says and put it in a headline, it becomes clickbaity, gets a lot of retweets, and, basically the whole indie community, music critics and music journalists are up in arms and making the CEO of Spotify the most evil guy in the world. And I get it. I definitely think what he said was really poorly worded and stupid, and he shouldn't have said it, but I want to play the devil's advocate here. Is it really that bad to suggest that maybe musicians shouldn't be able to release an album every 3 or 4 years and then get to live off those streaming royalties? Yes, the way he said that was really stupid. He could have worded that way better. But I mean, folks, it's the fantasy of like every single person in the world to get to release an album every 3 or 4 years and then get to live off those streaming royalties. The truth is, that's just something that is simply not obtainable for the vast majority of musicians, okay? And it has nothing to do with Spotify being evil. This is not Spotify's fault, okay? It's just the nature of how the music industry, it's just the nature of the music industry. It's just the nature of the fact that there's no fucking money in music, okay? So stop getting pissed off at Spotify for the fact that you are not making money off your music, okay? It's not your fault either, but it's not Spotify's. It's simply the fact that there is no money in this industry, okay? First off, Spotify has been operating for 12 years. They have never made a net profit for the 12 years they've been operating. They've been operating on a net loss every single year. So the reason they're not paying artists more, besides the fact that they don't have any incentive, is because the money is literally not there, okay? They're losing money as they operate, okay? If this was the case where Spotify was making billions of dollars and artists were, having to go fucking like homeless to be able to make music, then yes, this would be then I'd say, okay, this is a clear-cut case of exploitation. Spotify needs to pay their artists more. But that's just not really the case, okay? If anything, I think if Spotify should be paying anyone more, it should be people who are working their shitty customer service jobs that have to deal with that shitty job, or people who have to develop their apps, that's a miserable job too. Not the artists who probably, frankly, have a background where they have a trust fund, so they were able to, afford putting together an album and all this shit. And another thing that's worth thinking about is that artists who do live off their music are people like Taylor Swift and Drake and fucking huge pop stars, okay? And if we're gonna, fight to increase the revenue that musicians make off their Spotify streams, that's primarily going to benefit people who are already very wealthy more than it's actually gonna benefit indie musicians. So that's actually gonna increase inequality even more, okay? And personally, I'm saying like, if Spotify does have that money, don't fucking give it to Taylor Swift and Drake. We should fucking tax it and then give it to people in poverty. But if you're not a pop star like Drake and Taylor Swift, and you're really committed to making music your main source of income in life, I kind of do have a little bit of an issue with that, because you should be making music because you love to do it and because it's fun. It's such an adventure to get to create and perform music and inspire others and be inspired. Okay, you should be making music for that reason, and money should be an afterthought. Okay, I think money getting in there is just gonna create all sorts of incentives for you to make shitty music. But if you really want to do that, well, because it's so competitive and because there's such little money in this industry, you frankly should be prepared to work your ass off. And yes, that does mean releasing an album more than once every 3 or 4 years. The truth is, the vast majority of musicians, including musicians you know, they work full-time jobs and then they make music on the side. And I think that's totally acceptable and totally okay, given that the reality is working on an album, yes, it's very time-consuming and requires a lot of energy and effort. It doesn't require 40 hours a week to make an album, okay? You can make it on the side, especially given modern technology. It's not that big of a deal. If you want to be mad at Spotify, there are plenty of reasons to be mad at Spotify, you know, for putting these poppy, shitty artists in playlists that get tons of streams and hiding, you know, wonderful indie artists. That's a great reason to get mad at Spotify. But I honestly think ultimately all this rage at the Spotify CEO is anger at something that is they're taking the anger of the fact that they're not gonna get to live their fantasy of living off their music and projecting it on it's the Spotify CEO's fault when it's actually just it's no one's fault. It's just the reality, okay? So that's all I gotta say. It's cold, it's harsh, it's cruel, okay? Lots of shitty stuff with the music industry, but the money stuff is it's not Spotify's fault, okay? So that's all I gotta say. I hope you can handle the truth. Don't get mad at me. Punk Revolution now.